Wow, wow, and more wow. We are back in the studio for the Journal of Black Sexuality and Relationships podcast. This particular episode follows our latest issue, Volume 5, Number 4, Spring 2019. This particular issue of the journal is devoted to conceptions of masculinity. And today we are going to have Dr. Leah Hollis share her work about not only her article, but also her contribution to our field of Black sexuality and relationships. My name is Dr. James Wadley, and I am the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Black Sexuality and Relationships, as well as the host for this podcast. I just to start us off, I just want to run down the list of articles and contributions from our scholars for, again, Volume 5, Issue 4. So the first article is by Dr. Leah Hollis. It's Something to Lose Sleep Over, Predictive Analysis of Black Men's and White Men's Insomnia Issues Due to Workplace Bullying in Higher Education. The second article is Black Beyond the Rainbow, Clinical Implications for the Intersectionality of Race, Gender, and Queer Identity by Courtland Douglas, Janice Moody, and Dominique Broussard. The next article published is Factors Influencing Help-Seeking Relationships of Heterosexual African-American Males, and that's by Shauna M. Charles and Karen McCurtis Witherspoon. The next article is Reimagining Masculinities, How Black Queer Feminism Can Liberate Black People from the Toxicity of Patriarchal Masculinity, and that's by Janina J. Garrett Walker, Dominique A. Broussard, and Whitney L. Garrett Walker. And then the final article is a letter to the editor. It's entitled On Behalf of the 48 Girls, the Derogatis, Mitchell R. and R. Kelly Interviews, and that's by Dr. Sheila Baldwin out of Columbia College there in Chicago. These articles, again, span the continuum of Black sexuality expression. And again, it's great to have one of the authors of these articles be willing to come on to our show. And with that, we have Dr. Leah Hollis, who will come on to share her work with us. Here it is again, and here we are again, and I am fortunate, and I'll use the language of blessed, to have my sister and colleague, Dr. Leah Hollis, with us this afternoon. I'm going to go over her brief bio sketch, and then I just want to say, a few words behind it, because Leah has been a special gift in my life and a special gift to our community in terms of not only her personality, but also the work that she's been doing for a number of years. So Dr. Leah Hollis is an associate professor at Morgan State University and president of the Patricia Berkeley LLC Consulting Group, and is a noted national expert on workplace bullying. Her most recent book, The Course of Community College, Bullying and Its Costly Impact on the Mission to Serve Underrepresented Populations, is an extension of her work on bullying in higher education. Other notable work includes Bully in the Ivory Tower, How Aggression and Incivility Erode American Higher Education, is based on independent research on 175 colleges and universities. Dr. Hollis, a Boston University Martin Luther King Jr. Social Justice Fellow, has presented her research at the University of Milan, Oxford, Bordeaux University, and can be found at Leah Hollis at morgan.edu or Diversity Training Consultants. Leah is a extraordinary talent, and she has done work both near and far as it relates to bullying and harassment and the implications of bullying and harassment on the lives of professionals. I met Leah many moons ago. She was a victim at our last family reunion. And it turns out that in being a victim at our last family reunion, it turns out that Leah still stalks me for the $5 that I owe her that she lost at the family reunion. So nevertheless, now, but keeping it real, no, Leah is good peoples, and Leah is awesome. I just saw Leah down in Cuba, and she was kind enough to, she and her mother for for, as a matter of fact, were kind enough to share their work with our community, and that in and of itself was also a gift. So, Leah, or Dr. Leah Hollis, hello, how are you? Welcome to the
Hello.
first podcast for the JBSR. What's good? What's shaking with you?
I have to give the shout out back to you, James. As several people in Cuba had commented, ADSR has really changed the lives for many scholars who needed to get our work out there about how Black people are treated, the relationships, the sexuality, and all those other topics that other journals shy away from. And I just have to echo some of my sisters at the conference who also said this last 6 years has been absolutely wonderful. And thank you for leading us this unexpected path. So you too, sir, are an extraordinary blessing. And I look forward to continue writing for the journal. I have a couple projects that'll be sent your way. So yeah, how am I doing? We are recovering from Cuba. That was, you were right, a once in a lifetime experience. We learned a lot, not only at the conference, but also about Cuba in general. Some things I know people were a little fussy about, and understandably, Cuba is a different culture. And then there were some other things we really just got to appreciate when we went to the tobacco farm, and we got to eat out in that restaurant all the way out west of Cuba. So still recovering from that, which means catching up with students, finishing a couple writing projects. And yeah, I have another talk at the end of this month. I'm going to the University of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So that's a very long-winded thank you and how I'm doing kind of thing.
Yeah, I tell you what, I came back from Cuba, and the moment I got back through security, I sat down with a couple of participants there in Miami at the airport, and we went out for burgers and fries. It was like my body had shifted significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And what that looked like, and I won't get into any details, but I was broke down, I was torn down, and I was just exhausted. And so I'm still in recovery, and my body is still in recovery. And let's be honest, I mean, they have different water filtration systems there. And so when I came back, it wasn't quite so pleasant at home. But nevertheless, the experience there in Cuba was once in a lifetime. And I was
Yeah.
really hoping that people would get everything that they wanted to get out of that experience. And again, I'm appreciative that you and your mother were kind enough to join us on that initiative.
It's interesting you say when we got back to Miami, I headed straight for hamburgers and fries too. And the other thing that was really great, and I'm not one to wax on about stuff like this, but even my mother said it felt like a family reunion.
Yeah.
As you all know, she is, I should not say her age, but she's older, of course, and everybody was so helpful and supportive and wanted to make sure she got the help. And even though she's fiercely independent, I don't want the help. It was really nice. And I'll use that as a segue even into my own work. So while we as a group, and she kept remarking, they were whispering, there's a Black doctor from America. She had heard that a couple times, that this was a group of Black doctors. And one of them even asked, are you all doctors? I'm like, no, we have a couple lawyers too. And so I know the community was trying to figure out how to treat us in some ways.
Right.
But internally, we had this respect and civility, especially for an elder. I was just so thrilled how my mother was treated by the group. And because I am so concerned about how we treat each other is why I focus so much on workplace bullying. So in that sense, it was refreshing for me to see my mother treated so well by the group. I know coming in and out of Cuba, they got their colorism thing, and I'm working on my colorism chapter. That colorism thing is real,
Good.
but it was still something that can be woven back into our research and into what we say as, unquote, the group of Black doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And it still resonates with me more so. I mean, I enjoyed going to Prague. That was cool.
Uh-huh.
And you've been to St. Thomas. You're like the international guy, right? But there's something about Cuba that made us sit back and think about our position as Black intellectuals, Black scholars, or the Black family reunion, moving through this different space that was in many ways still frozen in time with the cars from the 50s.
Yeah.
With some of the artwork that still had those racist overtones from the 50s.
Yeah.
They very much were kind of like a time capsule, and we got to step into that.
Yeah.
And it's very, very eye-opening. Yeah.
And if I may, I think what was nice is that in stepping into that time capsule, it was nice and a privilege for us to process being in that time capsule with one another. It's one thing to process, if you go with your family, well, if your family's like my family, then, the conversation can go left really fast about whatever. So here it is, you're in the special place and folks want to talk about, well, who gets to use the iron when we get back to the hotel, or who used too much ketchup on their French fries. Well, there were no French fries in Cuba, but they were potatoes. So rather than processing some of the systemic dynamics that exist between Cuba and the United States, or just among Cubans, having those conversations on the shuttle bus, or just informally there in the concierge room or wherever, they were memorable, and that was some of the take home pieces that I got from the wonderful time that we had there.
I agree with that. And what's also nice is, since I've been back, so we're in Greater Philadelphia. So we have a colleague in D.C., and I've been in touch with her. We have another colleague in Virginia. I've been in touch with her. Another colleague in South Jersey. And so we have all exchanged emails. And as busy as we are, we're looking to see, maybe in December, when things settle down, right before Christmas, but right after finals, that we can meet up for lunch. So there will be a very nice carryover now that we're back. And I guess it segues again into one of the things you mentioned to me to discuss today is about mentoring and support and research. And so it's been very nice, not just about this trip, but about the experience with the people that you have attracted, James, is that people are mentoring each other. So on the one hand, I will come to you for advice, and you'll be like X, Y, and Z. And then sometimes you've called me and say, hey, what do you think about X? But then I'll also call down to our colleagues in D.C. and we'll go back and forth. Or somebody else will call me. And I think that's one of the things, as I read the Chronicle all the time, there are so many articles out there about how Black academics feel isolated, feel harassed, feel bullied, feel ostracized, regardless of rank. And so when we seek out mentors, and the advice that I've been giving people for the last year and a half is you've got to knock on 10 doors, because the 2 doors that open will be awesome. So just don't worry about the other 8. They weren't for you. The 2 or 3 doors that open for you just open in an amazing way. And then people will come to you. I believe in that whole karma thing or cycle of life thing or what have you. So when people come to me and say, hey, can you help me out? Can you do X, Y, and Z? I remember the real gems of people who have opened their doors to me when I say, I need a little help with this, or can I get a letter at the last minute, or can X, Y, and Z happen? And I find that our experience in Cuba and with your organization in general fosters that kind of thing. So I didn't come back from Cuba with all these souvenirs. I came back from Cuba with 3 or 4 wonderful new contacts, and we've all shared stuff. What have we been back, like 2 weeks? We've all shared really critical stuff about careers and career paths and publishing just in the 2 weeks that we've been back. So
now hold on now, Leah. Come on now. This is what I was talking to your mother about. You are a special person, and you run on high energy, overdrive, maximum drive, hyperdrive, 24/7, 365. So I'm hoping that whoever it is you may have talked to, I hope they can keep up with you.
Well, I also find in this in our different walks of life that I would say the same about you. I mean, let's face it, you call me from some place in Mexico, but then you're back to Cuba, and you had all this other stuff you need to get in by the Tuesday you got back, but you got back Sunday, whatever. And I think we do that when we find something we really enjoy studying. I enjoy my research. I enjoy the writing. I actually find it more interesting than television most of the time. And something about, I think you know this, I'm originally an English major. I finished up at Rutgers, and my master's is in English Lit, which means my form of training is you know how to sit down and write. You just know how to crank it out. So it's kind of in my DNA. And there's something about the writing that mentally just takes me into this other space.
Right.
And I like that other space. So, and I know with my mother has been around more lately. She has witnessed this work ethic, which I've always had. It just shows up differently when you're an academic. So she's actually seen me submit one article down for lunch and start on the other one like, right after that. She's like, how are you doing that? I'm like, because there's nothing on television. There's nothing I really would rather be doing. There's some things I should be doing, like I should spend more time in the gym, or I should spend some more time exercising. But part of it has to do with I really love writing. I get a charge out of every time I get something published. Woohoo! My name's in lights again, and then I repeat it. So maybe that's where my octane comes from.
Writing is liberating. Writing is emancipatory, and when you have a write and you know that you can touch people's lives you'll never come into contact with, I think there's a hit off of it. At least that's what I get. And I struggled with my writing for years, and hell, some people would say I still struggle with my writing, but I know that if I can, put together an idea and get it out there and hammer it down and narrow it down and edit it down and get it to a place where people can understand it, there exists a possibility that I can help someone who I never come into contact with. And so that's what drives me. Even though writing can be frustrating and annoying at times, I feel professionally obligated to do it. I just want to kind of channel us towards our questions because I made some assumptions about what your followers and what your fans and the people around Dr. Leah Hollis want to know about you. And so my first question is, share your story about being mentored and mentoring and the research that you've done.
Sure. On every segment of my career, I guess you shift mentors, because I started out in administration and in athletics specifically about mentors who were in those fields. So this is a crazy example. If you remember Trading Places, I just dated myself, right? And Eddie Murphy is talking about, well, if you want to be the head of the sausage exchange, you don't ask, the hot dog vendor. And so I've already taken that. If I want to be mentored, or if I want to be the next X, Y, and Z, then you seek out somebody who's crossed that finish line before you.
Right.
And so when I switched from administration to being an academic and teaching and writing, and that's what I do, I started knocking on all those doors all over again and reaching out to people, regardless of discipline, not always African Americans, to say, what do I need to do next? And have been relatively assertive about that. And I will go to somebody and say, hey, can you look at my CV? What do I need to do next? And I had a conversation with a gentleman about 5 years ago, and he ripped my stuff up. Okay, you need to be an AERA. You need to shift to quant. You need to do this. You need to, this whole generalist thing you're doing. And it has really shaped what I do next. Mm-hmm. And so I've been very blessed. I will use that word that, like I said, not everybody door you knock on will open, but the 2 or 3 who answer your call, they are gems. And I'm pleased to mentor young people coming up or emerging scholars, as you and I both did the Options Without Walls a couple years ago in Philly. Mm-hmm. And people really, the Black graduate students there were very excited about that. And so just as other people have helped me, I'm a big fan of helping others. And I think we, as Black scholars, whether you're at PWIs, HSIs, MSIs, HBCUs, the whole alphabet soup of the thing, that we as scholars, especially under Trump, mm-hmm. are more under fire. And it's more important for us to mentor across peer relationships, not just vertically, and to be there for each other as we continue to tackle these issues of race, gender, harassment, inclusion, etc.
Right. And so I guess that kind of goes into, so what's on the horizon for you? You've written so much about bullying and harassment, obviously in the workplace and obviously in higher education. So what's next for you? And when does world domination happen?
Oh, no. I don't want to dominate. I just want to share.
You don't want to dominate the entire world?
No. I just want to share. I just want to.
You want your own island?
No. I might want a bigger deck. I might want to stop global warming. What I would really like to see is for people to be at peace.
Yes. With
their careers. And I know that sounds very Pollyanna, but the more research I do, the further away that goal seems to be. Yeah. And especially for people of color. So my future initiative is not just looking at workplace bullying, but to look at the effect on people's health. Mm-hmm. Very much like the talk I gave in Prague, where we're talking about what happened, stress kills. So, and if Black people and women are more likely to face workplace bullying and the stress that relates to it, well, what's that doing to your blood pressure? And what's it doing to your weight? And what's that doing to your sleeping? And what's that doing to whatever self-medicating stuff you're getting into? And also, even though the grant money isn't in this area, what's happening to your bystanders? Right. I find it interesting you opened up with what my mother said about my work ethic, because she's watching my experience as a Black academic, some of which is truly fulfilling, this opportunity to go with a great group to Cuba, and other things which unfortunately is like par for the course for Black scholars and how our scholarship or even how we as human beings are treated. So my initiatives are about workplace bullying and health, and I'm also interested in workplace bullying and the impact on bystanders and how that affects whether it's your partners or your kids or your family or your mom as they're watching you go through these things. And I think it happens Black scholars regardless of the institution they're at.
Right, meaning that if you have friends or family who are around you, they may experience your joy, your pain vicariously, and then there may be implications for them experiencing some of the psychosomatic symptoms that you may be experiencing.
Yeah. An example would be, which kind of would hit home dealing with this coming out of the recession, if your partner or spouse comes home and they just got a pink slip, the whole house is stressed out. Oh my God.
Right.
It's the same in the other direction. If your partner, spouse, whoever comes home and they just got a promotion with a $50,000 raise and a bonus, woohoo, the whole family's happy.
Right.
Right down to the dog.
Right.
The same thing I would argue happens with workplace bullying.
Hmm.
If your partner has had a tough day and has been knocked around verbally or mentally or psychologically at work, and they come home, uh, yeah, the family's going to feel that.
Right.
And even if the partner, spouse, whoever comes home and says, "Hey, the bully was fired," the
Right.
family feels that too. So I am interested in what happens to bystanders who are witnessing this play out on their loved ones.
Yeah, and hearing you talk about this, I was thinking about, well, when I first came over here to the studio. One of the guys chided me on having a Steelers logo on my laptop, and so the person ended up confessing that he was an Eagles fan, and I did put my hands together in prayer for him during the time. But he was talking about we've had conversations about the Eagles and how they won a Super Bowl, I guess a few years ago, and hell, it was 60 years later since the inception of the Eagles, so it was their like 63rd anniversary. But nevertheless, everybody eventually gets over the top. So nevertheless, the feeling in Philadelphia was I was mostly jubilant, right? So no one,
Yeah,
the majority of people, if not all people, no one plays for the Eagles. But watching the Eagles win, the town was celebrant during that time. So then the
yeah,
implications of that is that, if you have a partner or child or loved ones who were able to experience that joy, that person is happy, and possibly that increases the likelihood that you might be happy if you have somebody who is celebrating that time. So the work that you've done kind of follows that same line of thought that if I'm at my workplace and I'm happy or I'm miserable, then the implications of that might be that my family will be either defendant or saddened or remorseful or jubilant over
yeah,
whatever it is that I may experience at my job.
yeah. I would, yeah, and I would like to research that empirically for higher ed. There
Hmm.
are other studies. I mean, the Scandinavians lead this area. They have been since the 90s looking at work stress and then work stress and workplace bullying. So I've got to give a shout out to the Scandinavian researchers who started this. Um, and they have done some work on the impact on bystanders,
Hmm.
but also the leaders in the field, the Scandinavians, also have said, respectfully, Scandinavia is a much more homogenous region
Hmm.
as compared to the United States, where we have this mosaic of races from all parts of the world and how those dynamics about race and gender affect the workplace. So while I give a shout out to them for starting their work, I think their first work started with looking at accountants during tax season and
Hmm.
realized that accountants are more stressed out during tax season. They started in the 50s. So moving forward, they started with workplace bullying. But what happens when you add race to it? And what happens when you add region to it?
Right.
What happens when you have those issues? And even as you mentioned, I did my doctorate in Boston. I recall people would get into beefs about the Sox and the Mets, and those are regional differences.
Right.
But we're actually going fisticuffs over baseball.
Right.
I don't think the Scandinavians are dealing with that. And with that thing with baseball, I know it's simple enough, but underneath it are these implied class issues.
Hmm.
The Mets versus the Yankees versus the Mets versus the Sox. And
Right.
there are some class things that get teased out of there, like California teams versus the beloved Steelers that we have. There are some implied class issues. So all that's to say, I am interested in continuing that work and parsing out the issues of race, gender, class that feeds into workplace bullying here in the United States.
Good for you. Good for you. And, if I or we can be of any support to everything that you're doing, obviously just let us know. The next question, and maybe the last question, but I have here when you can't sleep, and oftentimes I wonder if you ever sleep given the amount of work that you do, the amount of writing that you do. But on those days and on those nights that you can't sleep, what keeps you up at night regarding your professional responsibilities? And what would you suggest for someone who wants to follow in your footsteps?
issues of equity and justice, which is, to me, how I take on workplace bullying.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's facing bullying, for example, they were unfairly demoted,
Mm-hmm.
unfairly transferred, those kinds of things, that's hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
Injustices, like the one that just is when I look at the immigration issue and the abuse of power. Now, that's like a big time bully in Washington, bullying people who are escaping Honduras, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we pin them up like animals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have we learned nothing from the Japanese internment or the removal of Native Americans or what we've done to slaves of African descent? I was like, when does our history realize we are all human beings? And then you see children who go through that and they will be traumatized forever.
Mm-hmm.
And that trauma is not something like, okay, they're released in 15 days and then they can go on to a sanctuary or whatever. Those traumas will affect generations.
Mm-hmm.
And when I witness those things on TV, and I'll be honest, I can't watch too much CNN because I just want to throw up.
Right.
I'm like, when do we as a global community recognize that we really are all connected? We're not the same. I'm not doing this whole melting pot thing and we're all going to blend into this marvelous state of beige. That's where I'm going. But when we were in Cuba, one of our colleagues says, if we fight, we both lose. And if we collaborate, we both win. Mm-hmm. And so I get wound up sometimes and actually won't watch the news after 7. Because we all have so many wonderful things to share with each other, whether you're doctorally trained or not, whether you're 17 or 70, regardless of all those things. And so to abuse one's power over the other, which is where workplace bullying lives, is to deny the contribution somebody else makes. And when that denial is particularly harsh or hurtful, it's not damaging that one person, it's damaging the other people who are witnessing. So
Mm-hmm.
That bugs me. And once in a while, I will wake up in the middle of the night and write out an outline of something I want to do and get it out of my system. Or if I really can't get back to sleep, that means I'm back with my boyfriend called Mac, Macintosh, right? So even my partner, Antoine, he's like, you're such a Pollyanna. You just think the world should be fair. And I was like, if we ever stop thinking that, then nobody will strive for it.
Right.
So that does trouble. Those things trouble me, the inequity. And
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's, and honestly, I'll tell you, I kind of go back and forth between having this realist and this idealist notion of what the world is and maybe what the world should be. And, I guess for me, I just try to do right by the people around me. And, that's the best I can do. And obviously try to surround myself by cool people like you who are doing the work and who have big hearts. And, I think that's the most that all of us can do. Just do our best and, try to surround ourselves by positive people. One of the things that I thought about when you're talking about, your reaction to watching CNN, I guess one could easily turn over to Fox and see something totally different or not see anything at all, which is also troubling. And so we know that people of color, as well as undocumented folks or folks who are indigenous to this space, how there is, I don't know if this is the right way to say this, but the experiences or our experiences are to a large extent invisible until we can try to either create light or turn light in on us. And that has been, your contribution to the journal has been powerful because of that. So I don't know of anyone else who focused in on workplace bullying or bullying in higher education other than you. And so you bring to the journal and to our field a unique set of talents and a different kind of light that needs to be shed on the injustices that exist between uh, men, women, and non-binary folks, and even that has its set of implications as how people identify themselves, as well as how people are positioned or position themselves in the workplace. And so, I am not only grateful now, but eternally grateful for the contributions that you've made to the journal and to our community. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this podcast about your work, or any final thoughts that you want to contribute?
I'll end on a positive note. First, of course, thank you, James, as for creating this forum for all of us to share our work about people of color and relationships and sexuality. It is a voice that was surely missing in the academy, and one that you have provided for all of us. So I certainly would like to include that. And from Cuba, so many people echo that as well. So certainly thank you. But the thing I would leave with is, I've talked about the problems of workplace bullying, but one of the antidotes to workplace bullying is respect and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I may not agree with everything that everybody says, but I certainly can respect someone's position and have empathy for where they sit or how it's happening. Mm-hmm. And I find that with the kinds of comments I get through my survey. So I just completed a study on colorism and workplace bullying. And the open-ended comments are talking about how people are treated poorly because they're perceived as a threat or militant or whatever because of color. Well, what if the community around them just treated them like a human being? Just understood that there is a heart under there and there's a soul under there. And it doesn't matter what package it comes in, but to emphasize with the humanity, not be so hung up on the package. And I think if we, especially in leadership positions, could think about the human being underneath, that we could begin to tackle these issues of workplace bullying, not just codify them with policies and I'm going to sue you if you don't do this. And we've become a very litigious society these days, but just think there's a human being under there. And how would you feel if you were that human being being treated the way you treated targets of workplace bullying? So empathy can certainly lift us up out of those issues. So that would be my closing remark.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks again, Leah. So again,
this
is Dr. Leah Hollis from Morgan State University, and she is the founder and principal of Patricia Berkeley LLC. And to find out more about Leah, they should go to where?
www.diversitytrainingconsultants.com. There is a contact us page which comes right through to my email, and I respond. I get questions like, gee, how do I handle this? Or my wife is going through something, or can I talk to you for a minute? And I do try to honor those requests. It's important. We need to move forward as human beings. So that's how you find me.
Thanks much, Leah, and look forward.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, look forward to having you back on the show again, on the podcast again. Thanks much, and take care.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah. So thanks again for listening in to the Journal of Black Sexuality and Relationships podcast. I was just asked who the next person, who might the next person be to be interviewed. Honestly, I don't know, but I'm looking forward to figuring that out and allowing the next person to come in to talk about the work that they've been doing and the contribution that they've made to our community. And as always, look forward to getting to know you better as well.